Christmas Eve is supposed to be a night of warmth, laughter, and family. It's a time when homes glow with lights, tables overflow with food, and hearts are full of hope. But for one family, that night became something unthinkable. They were ripped apart against their will. In an instant, joy turned into chaos. Love was replaced by fear. Safety became a memory. This is not just a story of loss. It is a story of injustice, of power used to control and manipulate. It is a story that exposes how vulnerable we can be when those in authority exploit their positions. The shock was immediate. The outrage spread quickly, because everyone instinctively understands the wrongness of tearing a family apart. And yet for her it became more than shock. It became a spark. A spark that would ignite a journey of determination, strategy and courage unlike anything most of us can imagine. By the end of this video, you will understand why one person's resolve can challenge the strongest of systems. You will see how heartbreak and anger can be transformed into calculated action. And you will learn how even in the darkest, most unfair moments, clarity, planning and courage can reclaim what was lost. The stakes were higher than anyone could predict. Every decision carried risk. Every move had consequences. And every obstacle was a test of both mind and spirit. This is a story that unfolds like a chess game, with danger at every turn and lives hanging in the balance. It's a story that forces us to ask difficult questions about justice, morality, and the lengths a person will go to protect what matters most. Most of us believe power belongs to the strongest, the loudest, or the most feared. But sometimes, power belongs to the one who refuses to accept defeat, the one who studies every weakness, who patiently waits, who acts only when the time is perfect. This story is about that kind of power. It's about transformation, turning grief into fuel, helplessness into strategy, and outrage into precision. As we go through this journey, you'll see how planning, patience, and resolve can overturn what seems impossible. You'll witness the emotional depth of a mission born from love, loyalty, and a refusal to let injustice stand. And you'll discover insights that challenge the way we think about courage, consequence, and personal responsibility. Stay with me until the end, because this is more than a story, it's a lesson. A lesson about what one person can do when everything they hold dear is threatened. A lesson about strategy, timing, and the extraordinary strength that can arise from the most devastating moments. By the end you'll understand why Christmas Eve was not just a night of tragedy for her family, but the night that set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. This story will make you question what you would do in the face of unimaginable injustice, and it will leave you inspired by the raw power of determination, strategy, and the human spirit. Before we talk about the actions that followed, we first need to understand the emotional and psychological impact of separation. Losing contact with loved ones, especially suddenly and violently, is one of the deepest pains a person can experience. It is not just a physical loss. It is a fracture of the heart, a disruption of daily life, and a permanent scar on the mind. When someone you care for is taken from you, helplessness sets in almost immediately. There is a sense of being trapped, as if the world has shifted in ways you cannot control. Every second without them feels like an eternity, and every thought is consumed with questions you cannot answer. Feeling helpless when those you love are taken is more than fear or sadness. It is the awareness of your own limitations in a world that suddenly seems cruel and unpredictable. The mind races through scenarios, imagining outcomes, planning what could have been done differently. Sleep becomes shallow, appetite fades, focus is nearly impossible to maintain. This helplessness is both paralyzing and paradoxically, a catalyst. It forces a person to confront the raw edges of their own strength and limits. The longing that emerges from such a separation is intense and unrelenting. It is a constant presence like a pulse reminding you of what has been lost. But longing does not only bring pain, it fuels determination. The mind begins to shift from despair to resolve. Thoughts of reunion, of righting the wrong, of reclaiming what was taken, start to dominate. This determination is not reckless. It is precise, focused and driven by a clarity that only extreme emotional stakes can provide. The desire to restore what was lost sharpens the mind, creating a form of mental acuity that is rare in ordinary circumstances. Loss can drive extraordinary action because it taps into instincts that often lie dormant. When the familiar is ripped away, survival instincts are replaced by protective instincts, not only for oneself, but for those who cannot protect themselves. The ordinary rules of caution, hesitation, and uncertainty fall away. Every thought is directed toward restoring balance. Every skill and resource is evaluated for its potential to make a difference. This is how ordinary people achieve what seems impossible. The intensity of loss and the urgency of reunion push them past limits they never knew existed. At the same time, the psychological impact of such separation reshapes identity. A person who experiences this kind of trauma sees the world differently. Empathy deepens, priorities realign, and a sense of purpose emerges that is rooted in something more than personal gain. The emotional and mental energy generated by grief and longing becomes a powerful force, one that can drive precise, deliberate and sometimes extreme actions. In this way, what begins as helplessness transforms into agency. The pain of separation becomes the fuel for a mission, one that carries the weight of love, loyalty, and the refusal to accept injustice. Before we talk about the response that followed, it's important to understand who the masters or authorities involved were. These were not ordinary people. They were figures of power, individuals accustomed to control, and skilled at enforcing their will over others. Their influence extended through a network that was carefully constructed to maintain authority. Every action they took, every decision they made, was backed by a system designed to suppress resistance and ensure compliance. They operated with confidence, believing that no one could challenge their decisions without facing consequences. Their motivations were clear to those who studied them closely. Power was a primary driver. The ability to dictate outcomes, to bend situations to their advantage, and to maintain dominance over anyone who might oppose them. Control was another key factor. By separating her family, they demonstrated that obedience could be enforced and independence could be punished. Greed in many cases fueled the network's actions, whether it was the pursuit of resources, influence or personal gain. These motivations were intertwined, creating a system that seemed impenetrable, a machine that functioned efficiently and without compassion. The network that allowed the separation to happen was both complex and silent. It included intermediaries, enforcers, and silent observers, who ensured that each part of the plan worked as intended. Communication flowed quickly, and information was carefully managed to prevent interference. Barriers were put in place to delay or confuse any attempts at resistance. Each layer of the system reinforced the next, creating the illusion that the family's fate was sealed. To the masters, this structure was foolproof. They assumed that once they acted, the outcome would unfold exactly as they planned. But they underestimated her resolve. They did not account for the intensity of her determination, nor the depth of her commitment to her family. Where they saw helplessness, she saw opportunity. Where they saw obstacles, she saw paths to overcome them. Her mind worked with precision, analyzing weaknesses, mapping patterns, and preparing for actions they could not anticipate. They failed to realize that motivation born from love and loss can surpass even the most entrenched systems of control. Their overconfidence blinded them to the fact that a single focused individual could disrupt the entire network if they moved carefully and strategically. This miscalculation would become the turning point. The very people who believed they were untouchable had created the conditions for their own vulnerability. By relying solely on power and intimidation, they ignored the possibility that someone they considered powerless could rise with an intensity fueled by desperation, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Their oversight would prove fatal. The network's efficiency could not withstand the force of resolve that operated outside its expectations, outside its control, and outside its assumptions. Before we talk about the actions she took, we need to understand how she prepared. Gathering information about those responsible was the first and most critical step. She did not rush into confrontation. Instead, she observed quietly, taking note of every detail. Every routine, every interaction, every sign of weakness was recorded in her mind. Nothing was too small to be ignored. She treated each observation as a piece of a larger puzzle, knowing that understanding the full picture would be essential for what was to come. Patience became her greatest ally. In a situation where haste could mean disaster, waiting and watching allowed her to see patterns that others overlooked. She learned when her targets were most vulnerable, which allies could be manipulated, and which behaviors signaled opportunity. Observation was not passive. It was active and deliberate, requiring focus, discipline, and the ability to remain invisible while absorbing every detail. Her patience created clarity, and clarity created power. Understanding their weaknesses was the next step. No system is perfect, no network invulnerable. She identified gaps in their control, contradictions in their routines, and overconfidence in their judgments. She saw where their loyalty to each other was fragile, where their arrogance blinded them to danger, and where fear could be subtly introduced to create imbalance. By mapping these weaknesses, she turned seemingly insurmountable obstacles into actionable targets. Knowledge became her weapon, sharper than any physical force. The mindset needed to confront powerful adversaries was unlike anything ordinary people experience. She had to remain calm under pressure, maintain focus in the face of fear, and embrace the discomfort of uncertainty. Doubt could not creep in, and hesitation could not survive. Every decision had to be calculated, every move intentional. She understood that power is not only in strength but in strategy, and that the mind can outperform brute force when it is trained, disciplined, and unwavering. She also cultivated resilience. Preparing to confront authorities who controlled vast resources and networks required mental toughness. She learned to manage stress, to think multiple steps ahead, and to adapt quickly when circumstances changed. Observation and patience were not passive virtues, they were tools for building an unstoppable mindset. She trained herself to see the world through the lens of both caution and opportunity, recognizing danger while remaining focused on her ultimate goal. By combining information, patience, observation, and understanding of weaknesses, she positioned herself in a place of quiet advantage. She knew the path would be difficult, but preparation gave her confidence. Each piece of knowledge became a step forward, each insight a shield against uncertainty. The preparation itself was a form of empowerment, transforming fear into strategy, chaos into order, and vulnerability into strength. This foundation would be what allowed her to confront those who seemed untouchable, proving that careful preparation, unwavering focus, and a sharp mind can challenge even the most formidable adversaries. Before we talk about the results, it's important to understand the method behind her actions. Every move she made was part of a carefully designed plan. Her approach was methodical and calculated. She treated each step like a piece of a larger strategy, knowing that impulsive actions could jeopardize everything. Planning was not optional, it was essential. Every decision was measured against the ultimate goal, to reunite her family and dismantle the network that had torn them apart. No action was impulsive. Even in moments of high emotion she maintained control. She understood that anger and frustration could cloud judgment and create mistakes. Instead of reacting to provocation, she allowed herself to think several steps ahead. Patience was her ally, and careful timing amplified her effectiveness. Every move was deliberate, every choice considered, and every potential consequence accounted for. Impulsivity had no place in her mission. Targeting every master systematically was another key component. She did not focus on one individual at a time without context. Instead, she studied the network as a whole, identifying how each master interacted with the others. She mapped their relationships, their routines, and their vulnerabilities. By understanding the system, she could dismantle it piece by piece. Each action was part of a sequence, designed to weaken the structure progressively without exposing herself to unnecessary risk. Her strategy allowed her to level the playing field. Despite facing opponents with more resources, influence, and apparent power, she turned intelligence, patience, and precision into tools that rivaled brute force. While the masters relied on control, intimidation, and fear, she relied on observation, timing, and a deep understanding of their weaknesses. Strategy transformed an impossible situation into a manageable one. It created opportunities where none seemed to exist. She approached each target with the same careful thought process. Every decision involved weighing risk against reward. She avoided unnecessary confrontation, choosing instead the path that maximized efficiency and minimized exposure. By staying methodical, she prevented chaos from dictating her actions. She maintained a level of control that her adversaries never anticipated, quietly reshaping the battlefield in her favor. The methodical approach also gave her psychological advantage. The masters assumed she would act out of emotion, but her patience and calculation disoriented them. Their overconfidence became a vulnerability. She exploited their mistakes, turning small errors into strategic wins. Each calculated move reinforced the effectiveness of the next, creating momentum that the network could not stop. In the end, her careful planning and strategic execution proved that preparation and intelligence can overcome overwhelming odds. By being methodical, avoiding impulsive decisions, targeting every master systematically, and leveraging strategy, she was able to confront powerful adversaries on equal footing. The playing field, once skewed against her, was now leveled through patience, precision, and unwavering focus. Before we talk about the final outcome, it's important to understand the obstacles she faced along the way. The journey was not simple, and the challenges were both physical and emotional. Every step required endurance, focus, and the ability to manage fear. Physical demands tested her strength and stamina. Long hours, careful movement, and the constant need for vigilance pushed her body to its limits. But the emotional challenges were just as intense, if not more so. She had to manage anger, grief, and frustration while maintaining clarity of thought. Emotional turmoil could easily derail her plans, but she learned to channel it into determination instead. Avoiding detection and retaliation was a constant concern. The masters she confronted were powerful and resourceful, with networks capable of tracking and punishing those who opposed them. She could not allow herself to be seen acting prematurely. Every decision had to be calculated to prevent exposure. She moved like a shadow, careful to leave no trace, blending into her surroundings while gathering intelligence and executing plans. Awareness and caution became as critical as courage and skill. Adapting to unexpected situations was another essential part of her journey. Even the most detailed plans cannot anticipate every variable. Surprises emerged at every turn, an unexpected ally, a change in routines, or a sudden obstacle in her path. Each required rapid assessment and adjustment. She learned to remain flexible without losing focus on her ultimate goal. Adaptation became a skill in itself, combining creativity with discipline, intuition with observation. It allowed her to turn potential setbacks into opportunities and maintain momentum despite uncertainty. The resilience required for success cannot be overstated. Mental toughness, persistence, and unwavering commitment were her constant companions. She faced moments of exhaustion, doubt, and fear, yet she pushed forward. Resilience was built not only from determination, but also from preparation and awareness. By understanding the challenges ahead and anticipating obstacles, she strengthened her capacity to endure pressure without faltering. Physical and emotional endurance worked together. The body sustained the mind, and the mind directed the body. She balanced risk with caution, strength with precision, and emotion with strategy. This combination of resilience allowed her to navigate dangers that would have overwhelmed most people. She learned that setbacks were temporary, and that persistence could transform adversity into progress. Every challenge, every unexpected complication, and every moment of tension served to refine her approach. They tested her limits and forced her to grow stronger, faster, and sharper. Success was not just about skill or intelligence, it was about surviving the journey, absorbing the lessons of each obstacle, and using them to fuel the next step. Through physical endurance, emotional control, careful avoidance of detection, adaptive thinking, and sheer resilience, she prepared herself to face the powerful adversaries who had disrupted her life. These challenges shaped her into a force capable of achieving the extraordinary, turning obstacles into stepping stones on the path to justice and reunion. Before we talk about the aftermath, it's important to understand how she confronted and eliminated each master. Every encounter was calculated, deliberate, and precise. She did not act recklessly, but with purpose. Each step was planned to neutralize the target while minimizing risk to herself. She studied their habits, weaknesses, and routines, striking only when the conditions were most favorable. Every action was intentional, designed to achieve maximum effect while maintaining control of the situation. Maintaining focus despite danger was critical. The stakes were enormous, and any misstep could have cost her everything. Fear was present, as it would be in any life or death scenario, but she learned to channel it into heightened awareness. Her mind remained clear, her senses sharp. Distraction, panic, or hesitation were luxuries she could not afford. Focus became her shield, allowing her to act decisively even under immense pressure. The intensity and precision required were unmatched. She could not afford errors, and she could not afford delay. Each movement, each decision, each timing adjustment had to be exact. Precision was not only practical but symbolic. It reflected the discipline and resolve that had carried her through the long preparation. Every step was executed with careful attention to detail, ensuring that her actions achieved the intended outcome. There was no room for improvisation, unless absolutely necessary, and even then, adaptation was controlled, measured, and strategic. The symbolism of each act extended beyond the immediate results. Every master she confronted represented a barrier, a source of pain, and a piece of the injustice that had torn her family apart. By neutralizing them, she was reclaiming not only control, but also dignity and power that had been taken from her. Each act was a statement injustice could be challenged, and those who underestimated determination would face consequences. It was not violence for its own sake, but action with purpose, a deliberate restoration of balance. Her confrontations were also mental battles. Each master's presence tested her confidence and resilience. She needed to maintain not just physical control but psychological dominance. Every calculated move sent a message. Every moment of calm defiance weakened their perceived authority. She demonstrated that power is not always measured in resources or networks. It can be measured in resolve, courage, and the ability to act under pressure. Through focus, precision, and strategy, she systematically dismantled the structures that had separated her family. Each encounter reinforced the next, building momentum and reinforcing the inevitability of her mission's success. Her actions were a combination of skill, intelligence, and unyielding determination. The symbolism of reclaiming power through each calculated step served as both personal catharsis and practical justice, demonstrating that preparation, focus, and resolve can turn even the most impossible situations into achievable outcomes. In this way, every confrontation became more than a tactical success. It became a testament to what disciplined determination can accomplish when fueled by love, loyalty, and the refusal to accept injustice. Before we talk about the lessons learned, we need to understand the emotional climax of the story. After weeks of planning, observation, and precise action, the moment finally arrived when her efforts reached their peak. The tension, the fear, and the anticipation that had built up over countless hours of preparation and execution all converged. Every heartbeat, every breath, every calculated step led to this critical juncture. It was a moment charged with both danger and hope, a point where success or failure could change everything. Her actions restored her loved ones in a way that was both dramatic and deeply meaningful. The separation that had caused so much pain and helplessness was reversed. She reunited the family that had been torn apart, overcoming every obstacle that had stood in the way. The act of bringing them back together was not simply about physical reunion. It was about reclaiming the safety, love, and trust that had been violently taken. It was a restoration of balance, a reversal of injustice, and a tangible proof that determination and strategy can achieve what seems impossible. The relief and joy that followed were profound. After enduring such intense hardship, the moment of reunion was overwhelming. Emotions that had been suppressed, channeled into focus and planning, finally surfaced. Tears, laughter, and silent gratitude filled the space that had been marked by fear and loss. The relief was not just emotional. It was a validation of every difficult decision, every calculated risk, and every ounce of patience she had maintained. It was the reward for perseverance, a deeply human and satisfying resolution to a period of extreme tension. The significance of timing and patience in achieving this goal cannot be overstated. Every action she took had been deliberate, executed at the precise moment when it would have maximum effect. Rushing could have jeopardized the mission. Hesitation at the wrong time could have allowed the masters to regroup or retaliate. Her success was built on a foundation of careful observation and calculated moves. Patience allowed her to strike when conditions were perfect, ensuring that the outcomes were not left to chance. This emotional climax also underscores the importance of strategy over impulsiveness. It was not raw anger or desperation that brought her family back together. It was discipline, focus, and careful execution. The timing of each step, combined with her ability to adapt to changing circumstances, turned what could have been a chaotic struggle into a series of controlled, decisive victories. Ultimately, this moment of reunion represents the culmination of both emotional and tactical mastery. As the hardship she endured, the resilience she cultivated, and the precision with which she acted all converged to create a moment of profound impact. The emotional weight of seeing her loved ones safe again highlights the human stakes behind every calculated move. It is a testament to the power of patience, timing, and unwavering resolve in achieving goals that at first seem unattainable. Before we talk about the lessons, it's important to explore the ethical questions raised by her actions. What she did was extraordinary, but it was also morally complex. Taking down every master involved was a form of justice in her eyes, a way to correct a profound wrong. Yet, from another perspective, it could be seen as an act of revenge. The line between justice and retaliation becomes blurred when emotions run deep and personal stakes are high. This tension forces us to question, when does right action become morally ambiguous? Justice versus revenge is not always easy to define. Justice is often seen as fair, measured, and guided by principles. Revenge is emotional, reactive, and personal. But in extreme situations where formal systems fail or are complicit in wrongdoing, these definitions can overlap. Her actions were motivated by love and necessity, yet they carried elements of personal vengeance. The distinction between doing what is right and taking what feels deserved becomes a gray area, challenging conventional ideas of morality. Extreme situations have the power to redefine morality. When lives are at stake, or when authority has been abused to the point of injustice, the usual rules of ethics may no longer seem adequate. What might be unacceptable under normal circumstances can feel necessary or even righteous when the alternative is loss or helplessness. Her story forces us to examine how morality is shaped not only by societal norms but also by context, urgency, and the imbalance of power. It shows that right and wrong are sometimes fluid, shaped by the choices we are compelled to make under extraordinary pressure. The audience is invited to reflect on these questions for themselves. What would you do if faced with the same circumstances? How would you weigh personal responsibility against broader ethical standards? How do love, loyalty, and desperation influence moral judgment? These are not easy answers, and there are no universal rules. Her story serves as a mirror, encouraging viewers to explore their own beliefs about justice, accountability, and the boundaries of ethical action. Her actions also spark debate about consequences and responsibility. Even when outcomes are favorable, there remains a moral cost. The deliberate elimination of those responsible carries psychological and ethical weight. It forces consideration of the ripple effects, how actions taken in the name of justice might create new cycles of conflict, fear, or retaliation. Reflecting on this helps us understand that moral decisions are rarely isolated, and even justified actions may have unintended consequences. Ultimately, her story challenges simplistic notions of right and wrong. It demonstrates that morality is often situational, influenced by emotion, circumstance, and necessity. By examining her choices, the audience is prompted to think critically about how they would respond when confronted with injustice. It is a reminder that ethical reflection is essential, especially in moments where conventional rules may not provide guidance. The questions raised linger long after the story ends, inviting deeper contemplation of human behavior, responsibility, and the complex nature of justice in extreme circumstances. Strength can emerge from tragedy. Even in the darkest moments, the human spirit has the power to rise, adapt, and fight back. Determination can overcome seemingly impossible odds, turning despair into action and weakness into strategy. Planning, patience, and courage are key to achieving goals, proving that success is not just about force, but about careful preparation and unwavering focus. One person's resolve can change everything, reshaping circumstances that once seemed unchangeable and inspiring others in the process. If this story inspired you, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for more powerful stories of resilience, strategy, and the strength of the human spirit.